Happy Saturday. I played my first big WoW game last night, and I wanted to tell you about it and talk about it, specifically focusing on like the way that lists are going to be constructed now and these new units. So let's have a look. So here's the list. So the general was a Swamp Kala Shaman because I wanted super sneaky. I wanted to see what would happen if I super sneakied Gobsprakk into Unbind range before the start of the first game. Lots of people are deploying outside of range for Unbinds and taking Magical Dominance on turn 1. So I wanted to see what would happen if I super sneakied Gobsprakk in. So I deployed Gobsprakk like in a position I knew he wouldn't be, like off to the left, and then I super sneakied him way out over to the right. So I totally caught my opponent sleeping on that, right? Like, it's like, oh shoot, like now you're with an Unbind, like that sucks, and Gobsprack's so good, and like I don't want to, it's like, yeah, exactly. So also took a Auric Weird Knob Shaman with the Hand of Gork to teleport stuff around, so that was cool. Gobsprakk, obviously. Auric War Chanter with Fix and Beat. This list, I felt, is going to be way more of an absolute castle, and with Gobsprakk and Wergog Prophet and with a Big Pig, I feel like Fix and Beat is definitely the way to go. Wergog Prophet with Glowing Tattoos and Hoarfrost, and Mega Boss on foot with Destroyer. So that those were the heroes. And then following that up, I had for Battle Line, I had a reinforced unit of Brutes, and then 2 units of Ardboys, both with Stickas. Again, this list is going to be very much like a castle, and so, you know, I don't want to charge my opponent as often as I want to absorb a charge for lots of reasons. When you get charged as Big Waaagh, if you have your heroes stacked up behind, it means that you get more Waaagh points, right? Because you have more units that are stuck in combat, all kinds of stuff. So I think that the Stickas are going to probably be the choice for Big Waaagh, and the Choppas are going to be the choice for Iron Suns, right? If you're playing the Iron Jaws, if you're playing that style, I think. Then I had a Maw-Grunt to Gouge and a reinforced unit of Bullet Boys. I took the Warlord Battalion with the, I think it was Gobsprakk, Mega Boss on foot, and a War Chanter, and so I got Glowing Tattoos and Destroyer, because that's, if you're going to play Mega Boss and you're going to play Wargog, you kind of need Warlord. And then the other 3 Wizards, right? And I love this because it's a Bone Splitters, and Iron Jaws, and a Kruleboyz Wizard, and so it's one of each, and I just love that, right? Like, it's one of the reasons I love Big Waaagh, is being able to play all these different, you know, sort of factions that are working together. And so those 3 were the Andorian Locust Battalion, and that one, in my view, is incredibly important in Big Waaagh, because you want to have an advantage in Primal Dice with Gobsprakk, and you're not going to get it unless you have the Andorian Locust Battalion, because if you have Gobsprakk and your opponent is playing like a magic heavy army and they have more Primal Dice than you, you're kind of losing out with your game plan, right? So again, it's really important that when you're writing lists, so when you're getting ready for games, that you have a plan, and that you're leaning into that plan. You're like, okay, well, I'm gonna throw a bunch of Unbinds with Gobsprakk. That's my plan, and so I'm gonna make sure that that's actually gonna happen. So in this case, we're super sneaky. We're the Andorian Locust Battalion, right? We're doing all that good stuff. Cool. And then I took Inspired for my Triumph. Not that I'm ever gonna get it, being exactly 2,000 points. So this is very much more of a castle than what I played at the GT. At the GT, I played a Mega Boss on Maw-Krusha with like a minimum unit of Ardboys, like 3 times 5 Ardboys, I think, yeah, and then a minimum unit of Brutes, right? So it was way more like multiple small little units, and then I had 2 units of Pigs, right? So it was, you know, the battle line cost was much smaller, the cavalry cost was higher, and then I also had this beef of a Mega Boss on Maw-Krusha to, like, you know, teleport and fast in for like that one big huge punch. And that's my preferred playstyle for Big Waaagh. And then instead of the Bolt Boys, I just had a kill bow, right? So it had a little bit of range, but this style is certainly more of a heavy on the wounds, heavy on the models, heavy on castle. Like, you're really going to be a castle. Yeah, so here's roughly how I this is the end of my first movement turn. My opponent made me go first, right? Makes me unpack the castle. So from this perspective, the picture on the left is the right side of the battlefield. So I super sneaky Gobsprek way up because you can't see it, but just on the other side of the castle there was one of my opponent's wizards, like a good wizard that my opponent had. My opponent, of course, was playing Nighthaunt, so so I put Gobsprek there for that unbind, and so Gobsprek here was within unbind range of all the wizards on the table. And then I, in my hero phase, teleported this unit of Ardboys to just stand and protect him. You know, and I thought this was a pretty cool move, right? It's like, here's Gobby, but, you know, he's here and you hate him, but he's going to be hard to get. So I thought that was pretty cool. And then more in the center of the battlefield, so I ended up with 2 little mini castles. I have my regular castle. So at the front, I have Ardboys that are protecting a Wurrgog Prophet, and behind them, I got the War Chanter and the Swampcalla Shaman, and tucked into the corner, got the Weird Knob with the Boltboys. And then at the back, I had my Brutes and my Mega Boss. I kept them at the back because I knew that I would probably be teleporting my Mega Boss, and my Mega Boss was in a really good position where he could give his commands to everybody like that was around. It was awesome. And you can't really see it, but you can see on the left-hand side there's a little, that's the Big Pig base that's there. So the Big Pig on turn 1 sort of ran off to the left of the battlefield, touched an objective just to grab it, to force my opponent to have to put something on it. So at the end of turn 1, I scored full 5 points fairly easily. I picked Sneak Up, right? All my Kruleboyz are within range of terrain. Super easy. And I controlled all 3 objectives. Perfect turn 1 for me. So Nighthaunt in turn 1, if you're unfamiliar, Nighthaunt, in this particular army anyway, Nighthaunt can pick up 3 units and deep strike them. Like after deployment, you can pick up 3, and then at the end of the movement phase, right, they deep strike, and then this incredible, you know, chariot gets to instead of moving, can just, you know, teleport somewhere on the battlefield. So my opponent came at me pretty much from 2 directions, from the left and from the right. On the left, we had, I can't remember the names of the heroes. You'll have to forgive me. I've only played Nighthaunt twice. But my opponent threw these couple heroes at me with all this cavalry to grab that objective. And he didn't want to engage my castle. What Nighthaunt does is they like retreat and then they charge constantly. And they have really, well, at least this list anyway, has really high mobility. So, you know, you retreat and then you charge and you give a bunch of debuffs on the charge. Absolutely thematic army. I love it to death. So yeah, so on the left they came after my Big Pig, and I just redeployed backwards. You know, I redeployed back towards my castle, made sure that if he was going to charge me, that he was going to be within range of my Boltboys and my Wurrgog and everything else. Big Pig took some damage on his turn, but overall it was pretty good. I still had 3 momentum. Because I rolled a 3, so I had 4 momentum on my turn, so 3 momentum on my opponent's turn. So that was pretty good, right? Like, you know, it's a little bit of extra damage. Very low impact. Momentum is going to be a very low impact mechanic in Big Waaagh. And then on the right-hand side, behind Gobsprek, so this was like, it was my right-hand side, and it was on my side of the table. My opponent deep struck a bunch of stuff in here and came in attacking Gobsprek, and you know, we traded with some Boltboys or whatever, but it was good. Gobsprek stayed out of combat, but so far good. My opponent scored 5 points. So on my second turn, I was able to, using the Boltboys and using the Big Pig, I was able to clear out a lot of the stuff that was in front, and it was a pretty good turn for the Boltboys and for the Big Pig. The Wurrgog Prophet dealt no mortal wounds, not 1 mortal wound, and died. I rolled a 1 and then a 2 and then a 1, and I failed a lot of my ward saves, and I rolled big damage. Like, it was the worst Wurrgog that I've ever had on the table ever. Got nothing done whatsoever. On the right hand side, instead of getting Gobsprek into that fight, all that I did was he just moved. Gobsprek flew over the unit of Ardboys 14 inches, came into the middle of the map, and started to engage this other little unit of cavalry here in the middle, and really underperformed. Like, I super whiffed on this attack. That's going to be the story of this game. Was really poor dice. So on Nighthaunt's second turn, he came in and killed the Big Pig, finished off the Big Pig, and on the right hand side, I teleported my Mega Boss over there. to come in. So that was a fight that was happening, and you can sort of see on the right hand side my castle is still very much intact, right? My castle is still very much intact. I have yeah, my mega boss over there, and it was all good. Let's see. So the way I can't remember it specifically everything that was going on, like what happened, but essentially what happened was on my left flank, my opponent was able to throw in the that model is just proxy, but it's the Night Haunt endless spell. So what it just comes in and pulses a bunch of mortal wounds, and that was pretty nasty. And on the right hand side, the like the chariot was able to kill that mega boss, and I whiffed on damage completely with almost everything. Like Gobsprak whiffed all his dice. My Bolt Boys whiffed all their dice and got nothing done at all, like 0 damage. So I had incredibly poor damage rolls, and that just meant that my opponent was able to be more effective in trade. The chariot was able to retreat back from the mega boss. That's when I popped Destroyer. I still dealt a lot of wounds, but I wasn't able to really do anything. And the end of the game was his chariot moved in and killed my little squishies in the castle, right? So if you imagine removing that mega boss there, right, and removing a couple of those Ardboys, that chariot then just came in and like finished everything off in there. So that was yeah, that was kind of the end of it, right? And that little endless spell was able to like take out some of my Bolt Boys and throw damage on everything, and then that was the end of the game. I had on my turn 3, so I went first in the 3rd round, but my turn 3, the damage output, like everything just whiffed, and the fact that the Wargog had whiffed, and 2 out of the 3 times I shot with the Bolt Boys, I think it was the first time that I shot in turn 1 and the 3rd time I shot in turn 3, they just absolutely whiffed. Like my dice were just catastrophically bad. So, you know, you win and lose sometimes with dice, but overall I felt that the castle positioning was good, and like all my decisions were good. There was one decision that I made at the end of the game. It was actually, you can see it right here. What I chose to do was I chose for the Bolt Boys to shoot at the chariot, because I was like, I'm going to kill the chariot. So the Bolt Boys are going to shoot at the chariot. The Mega Boss is going to go into the chariot and punch it. And then the Ardboys are going to go stay on the objective, and they're going to move forward and take out this cavalry unit. But what I should have done is I should have sent the Bolt Boys to kill the Bolt Boy should have shot and killed the cavalry unit, because it's just far fewer wounds. The Mega Boss should have done his thing with Destroyer, but the Ardboys should have gone the other way. So instead of the Bolt Boys on the chariot and the Ardboys on the cavalry unit, I should have swapped them, right? So that was a mistake by me, but I like as soon as I kind of did it, I was like, yeah, like that was probably a mistake. I should have kept the castle screens on the left and the right, and not kind of up in the middle, because I have 1 million feet on the objective, so it doesn't matter. And then I would have had a lot more feet on the other objective there on my right, or in the bottom part of the picture here. So that was a big mistake by me, but the thing that really lost me the game in this round was the lack of damage that came out of you know, the Bolt Boys and the Wargog over the whole game. But yeah, and the brutes were ready for that, for my left flank. My plan was like, I'm gonna keep the middle. I have enemies on both sides. I can't fight them both, so I'm gonna keep the middle, and I'm gonna move to the right and get rid of the chariot and have more boots on that objective, and I'm gonna win that side of the fight. And at this point, I'm like 27 wall points or something, but I'm gonna win the right side and hold the middle and force my opponent to have to come into a unit of whatever it was, a lot of brutes, right? 10 brutes. I still had all 10 brutes at this point. So I was like, come at me, bro, right? Come at me, bro. I'm going to sit here and I'm going to, you know, I'm going to unleash hell you when you come at me. But that's not how it actually worked out, because after all, it is a dice game. So the game kind of ended when I lost all my casters, and that endless spell pulsed a couple times, and it was enough to kind of like weaken everything to the point where the chariot could come in and just kind of slay everything, you know. And I was left with still my brutes, still some Ardboys, but I no longer had the ability to move out on the map and contest any objectives. Like I was gonna hold the middle, you know, like my opponent still didn't want to come at me, but he was just gonna like throw endless spells at me and magic at me, and that was just going to be it, right? Like there was nothing I could do at that point. So we shook hands and you know, did the rest of the game out in math, and it was good. It was a very good game, very fun. I love playing against Nighthaunt. They're a fantastic army. They're super thematic. My opponent's always fun to play, so it was good. So new units and overall, how do I feel about the new units and how do I feel about Big Waaagh now as a whole? So the Yard Boys felt good. You know, they certainly are better at holding space. The biggest complaint that I think people have about them is how expensive they are and how it's shaking up the battle line requirements in Big Waaagh in general, right? Because now, even if they were 200 points, you know, going from 80 points times 3 to 200 points times 3 for minimum battle line requirement is rough. It's also tough right now for Big Waaagh. I'm not sure how you feel, but I don't really want to take a unit of Gut Rippers and a unit of Hobgrots and then like a unit of Brutes or Ardboys or something, you know, like the minimum battle line that we can take right now is, you know, still a lot of points, and I just don't like playing those units, you know. I could see one unit of Gut Rippers, but I can't see the Hobgrots. The unit of Gut Rip is maybe because you can super sneaky them, so there's some kind of play there, you know. But like if that's not your plan, if you're like, well, I'm gonna super sneaky Gut Rippers on turn 1, like if that's not your plan, then I think that they get significantly worse. So I don't know, I'm not really sure how I feel about that. But the new Ardboys are definitely good at holding space. That 3-up save, you know, you give them Mystic Shield and all out defense, and all of a sudden it's like, well, we're not going anywhere. And you're like, I'm just gonna sit here and you're gonna charge me and I'm gonna get 2 rend on these attacks, you know. And then when you have like your +1/+1/+1, like +1 to hit, +1 to wound, and +1 damage, it's like, you know, 3s and 2s with 2 rend and 2 damage. Like that's reasonable. And you're gonna throw a lot of dice, right? Like you can throw 21 dice, so that's a lot for 3s and 2s with 2 rend and 2 damage. When those wall points and that Violent Fury all get stacked up on Ardboys, they slap just like the Ardboys did before. The Stickers didn't do anything against Nighthaunt though, because Nighthaunt just ignores rend. Like there is no rend in Nighthaunt. They can't modify their save and there is no rend. But I still feel like it was good, you know, like my opponent was charging into me and I was getting the rend buffs, right? So like it still felt good. Ardboys are probably still overcosted, but they are good. You know, the unit is a good unit, just the points are off, I feel. 200, I could see 200. You know, people are always comparing, like I myself as well, we're comparing them to 180 Saurus Warriors and the new Chaos Chosen, right? The Foot Chaos guys for in Slaves to Darkness for 180 points, but those might be undercosted, you know? So I don't know, like I could see 200. 180, obviously I would be happy, but you know, 200 seems fine to me. 220 is just a little bit expensive. The math, I think maybe you're feeling the same way about Big Waaagh, but the math on list building with 220 is kind of like, I don't know, it's kind of rough. But they were good. You know, I had 2 units of them. They were good screens. They stat on objectives great. They were awesome. The Gouger did his job as intended as well. Momentum on turn 1, that was the only, you know, I'm just gonna run out and grab something or hold a flank or something, but you're probably gonna run your Gouger on turn 1 no matter what. And there's a 1 in 3 chance it can then charge, so that's a big risk, but that's a play you could make. You know, if you really need that, if you really want to charge a Gouger on turn 1, you can. There's a 1 in 3 chance you can anyway. He can go 15 inches and then charge. So, but it's super risky, right? Because what if you get caught in the middle of a field? So the momentum is fine. He was still fighting with full force at the top of the second turn, and it felt really good. He was in his 3rd round of combat, and he was still hitting with everything. He was still hitting with all of his attacks. Everything was at top of his bracket, right? Which is great. He underperformed against Nighthaunt because he relies on rend. Like one of his, I think it's his Tusks has 3 rend. So if your opponent is ignoring rend and your attacks are balanced around having a ton of rend, that's not great. But I think that he'll basically chew through anything else, and he doesn't need Violent Fury. Like Violent Fury on him is fine, but if you're playing Big Waaagh and you only have 1 War Chanter, he can just sort of go without Violent Fury, and that's totally fine and okay. He doesn't need it. You can put it on a unit of Ardboys, or you can put it on your Brutes, or you can put it, you know, you can put it elsewhere, I guess, and it works fine. You can give it to him, like that's also fine, but the fact that he was fighting at the top of his bracket and was still counting as 5 on an objective even when he had 10 wounds on him, that felt really good. Big Waaagh wants to grind, right? And he did that. He ground, It was still great. He was good. A better screen and a better tar pit than a Gruntas. He's both of those things. He's a better screen. He's a better tar pit. He's better at dealing damage without any buffs. But he's not a strategic surgical missile. Right? Gore Gruntas, you can buff him up, teleport him, Mighty Destroyers, 3-inch charge, and whatever they hit that turn with their buffs, they're going to take a lot of damage. So he's not that. He's more of a screeny tar pit. But you could also run both, right? Like running 2 units of pigs, I felt always a little bit kind of like, you know, like it was always a little bit redundant. So in this list, you could replace like the Bolt Boys with a unit of pigs. And so 240 for the Bolt Boys. So it would be 70 points you'd have left over, right? So you could do something like, instead of Bolt Boys, a unit of pigs, and then you only need 10 more points to have a kill bow, right? So like you can kind of go that way too, right? Like you don't need to have Bolt Boys. You can do like, you know, a kill bow for some shooting, or 3 Bolt Boys for some shooting, and yeah, and like run some pigs. So it's good. Like the big pig is, I think, going to be good in Big Wa. I think that he's going to be a staple in Big Wa. I could see playing 2 in Big Wa. It's good. Was nice being able to stomp. 180 points for a monster is good, right? 180 points for a monster is good. Stomp, roar. You're not going to get his Monstrous Rampage, right? The Strike Last, right? You're not going to get that in Big Wa. You know, so it's really unlikely. You would have to run. You'd have to run, and then you would have to roll a 3, and then you'd have to be within range to charge, and then you would have to successfully charge, and you'd have to roll well again. And then you can use his monstrous action, but you're just not going to use it in Big Wa, and that's okay. Even without it, he's like a stomp and a roar is good. The only other monster that you have now is Gobsprakk, right? So losing that Maw Crusher is rough, which sucks. Maw Crusher is off the table. It does. Mega Boss on foot is good. Having him with Destroyer is good, but not gonna lie, I miss my cabbage. Not gonna lie. Having that ability to like teleport the Maw Crusher and having Mighty Destroyer ×3 and Fasten, and like being able to delete a unit off the table that you want to get rid of anywhere on the map, right? Feels good. So the fact that he's gone, yep. The playstyle of Big Wa, I feel, has shrunk with this increased in cost for our battle line. I feel like the way that you play it now is it's kind of shrunk. The Maw Crusher is way harder to get on the table now, right? Because like, what are you gonna run 3? The cheapest battle line option right now by itself is Brutes at 140. But if you take a unit of Gut Rippers and then you take a unit of Hobgrots, you're looking at 230 for both. So it's 115 each. That's kind of the math, right? So the cheapest battle line option is 1 Brutes, 1 Gut Rippers, and 1 Hobgrots. But that sucks, right? That battle line sucks. So I think realistically the cheapest battle line option is 3 times 140. So if that's what you're doing, it's hard to fit a Maw Crusher into a list like that. Like you can do it, but I feel like that playstyle got weaker for sure. People were always arguing Maw Crusher versus no Maw Crusher for Big Wa. People were really passionate about their 2 sides of the argument, and now I think that the best Big Wa lists are definitely not going to have a Maw Crusher in it. I think the argument for the Maw Crusher versus no Maw Crusher is kind of over. You know, you can still do it, but I think if you want it to be like an optimized list, I think it's not going to run a Maw Crusher in it. Bolt Boys, however, were a very nice addition, especially considering we are a heavier castle than we were before, at least the way that I play Big Wa. So Bolt Boys they slap. Having a Swamp Caller Shaman and a unit of Bolt Boys, like, you're going to deal a lot of mortal wounds, right? And you're a way better castle than you are in Bolt Boys, or than in Cruel Boys, right? Bolt Boys are better in Big Wa than they are in Cruel Boys, because the Cruel Boy army has a really hard time having any kind of like decent screens and tar pits, right? So the fact that we have like all these 3-up save Ardboys surrounding us, it feels good, right? Like it feels good. Super sneaky Gobsprack to deny turn 1 tactic is good, but you might sacrifice your own casting and therefore your own magical dominance on turn 1. So that's what happened to me. I had no problem with battle tactics, about which we will speak next, but the you know, on turn 1 I wasn't really able to get a lot of my spells off. Like my opponent was within unbind range, but it was fine, right? Because in Big Wa the spells are just a bonus if you happen to get them off. Right, like my weird knob shaman, I left him outside of unbind range so I could teleport something if I wanted to. But it was good. The super sneaky Gobsprack was good. I'd say that it might be better than Master of Magic. You know, it might very well be better than Master of Magic if you're gonna be running Bolt Boys. If you're gonna be running, you know, maybe a unit of Gut Rippas, I feel like the super sneaky is pretty solid. You could also, I was also experimenting with like a Snatch a Boss list too. You know, so you can super sneaky that guy if you wanted to as well. So it's fantastic. The battle tactics, again, super easy. You know, sneak up turn 1, Dats our turf turn 2. Dats our turf is better with this many units kind of thing, right? Because you're feeling more confident when you push that castle into the middle of the board. And that's definitely how you want to play this at least this list that I was playing. You want to move that castle up into the middle of the board for sure, so that the Bolt Boys can just shoot whatever comes at them. So sneak up turn 1, Dats our turf turn 2, both felt super strong. Take Dat, you suckers, was a battle tactic I failed on turn 3, but again, it's because everything whiffed. But realistically, it should have been a super easy battle tactic to get. All I have to really do is shoot with my Bolt Boys and kill stuff, right? Like you can Wargog and Bolt Boys, and then there's, you know, it's a very easy thing to do. And then for turn 4, I had Wait For It Lads that was already ready and set up, like that was going to be a free battle tactic, and I hadn't even touched anything out of the general's or the general's handbook yet. I hadn't used a single one, but there was lots of different ones that I could have done. Led into the Maelstrom was on the table. I could have teleported it. Like there's lots of stuff I could have done. Magical dominance, magical. Yeah, I mean that other one where you kill with spells, right? That's the thing that I have access to. It was good. It was all fairly easy. The battle tactics were good and fine, no problem. Swamp Color was a good general. I talked about that already. The teleports, so I took away Master of Magic, but the teleports weren't crucial because I wasn't trying to like teleport a unit of pigs somewhere on the map. I wasn't trying to teleport the Maw Crusher somewhere on the map to really mess with people. So the teleports lost a little bit of their importance and value in this list. So taking the Swamp Kala Shaman as a general was totally fine. Overall, army is still strong. The style, this style of play, I think improved in Big Wa, but the other style, which is like the Mega Boss, more mobile, more come at you sort of style, got worse. So if you are used to playing a pig heavy, Maw Crusher heavy Big Wa list, you should check out. You should play this different, more foot, Ardboy, brute, castle style list, and tell me what you think in the comments below. Like, subscribe, Wa.